going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to a gaming review. But today we're going to be discussing Resident Evil 3 Remake. I had so many opinions about this game. It took a while to really flush everything out that I was thinking and just dive into what I wanted to say with this review, because there's a lot. And also for people who are new here, hi, I'm looking over, and like if I'm not looking at you guys and I'm looking off to the side, I'm looking at like part of the script that I wrote in my article for today's video. So, you know, that's why my eyes be going like wake walk, wake walk, wake walk. I just sounded like an Animal Crossing's character. Wake walk, wake walk, wake walk. Kind of sound like Tom Nook when he's happy. He's like, you know that sound that he makes whenever he's just like, okay, I'm getting off track right now. I'll go, sorry. I never thought the day would come that I would actually be able to sit down and play this game on a current system. It's really amazing, actually. Going from the late 90s to now, seeing how much progress there's been during this entire time in the gaming industry is really magnificent. Never did I think this game would be remade to the extent that it was this time. Not only having the full game, but a multiplayer DLC. Now that it has, I love it, but I also have some mixed feelings on the game as well. Now, we as fans of Resident Evil, we know how in-depth the plotline is. We know how extensive it can get. The puzzles, just the excitement of it all. We know everything inside and out. Now, since all of the games are getting a much-needed makeover as far as a remake goes, we have the game that was basically a reboot of the franchise in 2017, and that basically kick-started everything off into being remade. And I can solemnly say that things are the way they should be. You didn't expect me to say that, now did you? Now, hear me out on this, okay? The thing is that making a game back in the 90s is like making a rough draft of a paper. There always has to be a final copy. With every rough draft comes a final copy, and with every rough game comes a remake. With creating a remake, you run into a lot of difficulties. I feel with this remake, the focus was more refined, I feel, in terms of you had a clear objective, who the enemy was, who needed to be fought. And we know that it was Umbrella, it was Nemesis. With the first game that came out in '99 of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I feel like the objective was a bit scattered and all over the place. The main focus that they honed in on for this remake was the Nemesis, the Umbrella Corporation's beloved horror child. I feel like there was no refined focus in the game in 1999, and it felt a little all over the place and slightly lackluster. Having a clear point that goes from A, B, and C in a game, in any story for that matter, is essential and crucial. Creating as extensive of a game as Resident Evil, you can't just go from point C to F then L. You can't go all over the place with it. And I feel like with as much of a plotline as Resident Evil, I feel like they completely made the game feel like it has more sense and more logic to it. Hear the name, the Umbrella Corporation. What do you think of? I'm not going to give you time because I'm going to answer the question right now. But you think of Raccoon City, you think of Resident Evil, you think of all of the things that are incorporated with it, the T-Virus, you know, Nemesis, all of those beloved characters. The Umbrella Corporation has been the model for what not to do whenever you are working in a company, like, oh, I don't know, keeping secrets, creating bioweapons, human experimentation. There's a whole host of illegalities that come up when you're doing this, obviously. Some turn a blind eye to it, and some take aim, no pun intended, and take action in defeating these kinds of entities and these companies, even if it means finding out more than you originally intended. Now, giving evil a name isn't really an easy task, but the Umbrella Corporation has fined it down to an art. Let's take the concept of the Nemesis. Let's take this entire concept of this creature that the Umbrella Corporation has created. Let's look at the evolution of how this creature was represented in both games in 1999 and now in 2020. The Nemesis is a hulking creature that would stalk Jill and say stars every single time he encountered her, and gave these weird grunts every time he would miss an attack, like, oh. The character that is the Nemesis when it was first created really didn't scare me all too much. When I was a kid, I wasn't easily terrified. Like, the Nemesis was a little bit bland and unloved back in the day. You know, it had this very basic design to it. It didn't really wear a plastic bag, but that's besides the point. When the remake happened, however, I feel like the Nemesis was brought this new life to it. It was rejuvenated with a sense of purpose and this sense of just belonging within the franchise, you know? Nemesis in Resident Evil 3 Remake, however, is now given a clear, definitive purpose as to what it is, what its goal is, and that you could see some of that in the first version of the game, but it wasn't entirely a point that was too clear. You knew that it was out to get stars, it was out to get Jill, and anything really in its way besides monsters. It's more clear to the audience in the remake why the creature is the way it is, why it's attacking Jill, and why it evolves into so many forms. The Nemesis is the evolution of the greed and the corruption that is within the Umbrella Corporation. That's my entire point, that I thought from the get-go, from whenever I was seeing these different evolutions of the Nemesis, I was like, this could be a metaphor. See the evolution of how each form of the Nemesis got angrier, it got more destructive, it got more blood hungry, and the Nemesis is that personification of the company in which Umbrella created, a greedy, self-serving monster. Now each character plays a unique role in this story. They all did, even back whenever the original games came out. I just feel like their characters are a lot more fleshed out nowadays. Taking the style apart from the rest, I feel like, you know, Jill's character was given a lot more life. Even Brad Vickers' character was given a lot more life. I remember first seeing him back in the very first game back in 2003 when I played, and we all know him as Chicken Vickers. We really get to see all the characters in their own element this time around, and I feel like the character of Jill Valentine in particular was taken a lot more seriously than in the 1999 version. Besides the fact that Jill sounded like she absolutely hated everyone, she has a mouth on her that even a sailor would be jealous of. Pretty accurately depicted, and the fact that, you know, her behaviors and her movements, everything really coincided well with the character that is Jill Valentine. Even her attitude, which albeit the version in 1999 Jill was way tamer in an extent than the version in 2020. The goal that Jill has is simple: take down Umbrella, take down the company that really put her life in a blender and just flipped everything upside down. For me, I believe that she's one of the only characters that has an opinion. She speaks her mind, she speaks the truth, and she's one of just the strongest characters, I think, in the entire series. She moves with purpose within the games, and I feel like ever since her character was remade in 2003, they kept that as a constant. They kept Jill, this powerful woman character within the gaming industry, within the gaming universe, that you can look to and say, hey, you know, she's not this model, she's not like this stick skinny character, she is an accurate depiction of what a woman should strive to be like. She knew what she needed to do and she did it, and then as each character finds out the truth behind Umbrella, there's this sort of renaissance moment that happens with each one. There's one that happens with Jill, there's a renaissance moment that happens with even Carlos whenever we see him break the screen in the video game of where, like, crap, you know, wow, Umbrella is this way and she even trusted me. Like, you know, it's one of those things where, like, even Brad has this moment of let's just get the hell out of here. The wool is lifted finally from their eyes, and kind of this eerie logic fills their heads around like a gas. But going back to the Nemesis, the Nemesis is here to get rid of the problem, and the problem is stars. But in the remake, the character of the Nemesis felt so fast and it felt so diverse. It really truly made me love the character. It really made me love the concept of how the character was created in this game. It was fleshed out more, and it felt more of an important character than just being there, than just being this creation that Umbrella did, and it's like, oh, Jill has to fight it. The Nemesis is the representation and the personification of the greed and anger and mistrust, actually, within the Umbrella Corporation. It's really fitting that the creature grows in its form throughout the game as the company does, because it grows in deceit, it grows in malice. It's a thing where, like, the Umbrella Corporation wants to get rid of their problems. They want to hide the evidence along the way. This is what made it even more fascinating to see. And that's why this remake, to me, it felt a little more clear as far as the Umbrella Corporation's representation and the Nemesis's representation went. You know, there's a lot of things that Capcom did right with this game. There's a lot of things that they did. You know, I feel like they did things more fleshed out. You know, keep in mind, I played this game when I was a kid, so if anything, any points that you guys disagree with, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to have a full-on discussion with you guys about this game. It made each game, each remake, more fleshed out. I know I keep saying that word, but it's the main word that comes to my head whenever I think of this. And the coherence in a way that each game is a sequence of events instead of just bits and pieces. We know that the timeline lapses with Resident Evil 2 and 3, which not a lot of people got. They thought, oh, it's two separate timelines. No, each one was interwoven within the other. Resident Evil 0 came right before Resident Evil 1. Then you have Resident Evil 1. Then 2 was happening as Jill was unconscious in the hospital. So the fact that, you know, game 2 was happening while game 3 was occurring in Jill's unconscious state is really fascinating to me. We're gonna reel it in for a little bit, and, you know, this game, it's lacking. I have to say, while we're bringing it back to the basics, and while we're bringing it back to the moments that we love about the game, it's lacking in a lot. It's lacking in several puzzles, it's lacking in different areas and important story points from the first version. Capcom managed to bring consistency to certain points where there really wasn't in the first version, and tying in different things and condensing it and really making more of a moral resolution concept for this game. We know who we're fighting, we know the reasons, we know all the outcomes and everything, but I never thought that Capcom would bring so many of the original characters back. I never thought that they would bring Dario or Murphy or Tyrell back. Even Marvin from the second game, they brought him back when he was fighting the zombie version of Brad, which I thought was so rad. There's even a section, actually 2 sections, where you can play as Carlos. Granted, in the section of where you go into RPD as Carlos, that was, you're supposed to be playing as Jill whenever you go into RPD, but you know what, beggars can't be choosers. In the original, whenever you were going into RPD as Jill, that's where you encountered a lot of puzzles, that's where you encountered a lot of the stuff. So I'm really curious as to why they made it like that, but again, I'm fascinated with the entire concept of going into RPD as Carlos, of actually going and finding the vaccine for Jill, which you saw in the original game. That was still something that happened as well. So they brought back a lot of the old stuff from the original. Now, the one thing that I have really a big issue with, and I know a lot of people also have this issue, is the fact that there were no multiple endings and Barry Burton was not in the end of the remake. In the end of the remake, it's just Jill and Carlos flying sky high, avoiding vaporization. With the severe lack of puzzles, I feel that's why it was so short to begin with, because if you had all the puzzles, if you had all of the areas that were actually in the original version, it would have been so much longer. I mean, I wanted to use more brain than bronze, but okay, Capcom. Will we get the parts that we didn't get in this remake in a DLC? Will there be something to extend the story? I have no clue, but Capcom does what it does for a reason. I know this might sound kind of bitchy in a sense to say, but does it assume that other players don't want to think, or we want to think our way through things? As people who remember the game from playing it from childhood, we have nostalgia towards it. We have this kind of this memory of something of where you really had to work your way through the game in order to get to the next point. But the clarification of the Nemesis and how it really has tied to this ever-growing greed of the Umbrella Corporation, I really enjoyed. Beautifully done, and especially the last boss fight that was done with the Nemesis, chef's kiss. It was really, really good. In my closing thoughts, what did I entirely think of this game? Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, it was a big part of my childhood. Like a lot of people who were a fan of the game, it was a big part of our childhood. It was a big part of why we even love gaming to begin with. We love the Resident Evil franchise. I absolutely know for a fact that I would not be here doing this right now if I had never played Resident Evil. And back in the day, it was fun in its own rights. For the time that it was released, it was, it was pretty fun. While the remake was graphically amazing, it was stunning, it was so beautifully brought together, there were missing parts in it. Had there been a lot of the missing bits in there, I feel like the game not only would have been longer, but I feel like it would have been more of an accurate depiction as far as recreating it from the older version. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that there are changes that need to be made. I understand that there were several things in the game that they might have had to take out. They might have had to rework some things. There were several changes that really needed a change, like the Nemesis. Like, I understand that changes need to be made, but whenever you take away points of the story that make the story what it is in general, that's when I have an issue. Now, as a whole, I love the game. For me, it has replayability. It has that essence that, okay, I want to go into this again. I want to get the achievements. I want to be able to see all the things that I didn't get to see, Capcom has brought back a lot of our favorites. They've brought back a lot of characters, ones that I never thought would ever see the light of day, ever. Carlos got more, more empathetic. He's more well-rounded in terms of his character development. He has more of this human-esque presence to him. He's not just, an orange-looking haired hamster from 1999. Jill was very sassy. As always, her character, I feel like she was more vibrant. I feel like she was more well-rounded and just more wholeheartedly what I feel like Jill should be, besides the extent of cursing. I'm not even counting that. There was a lot of cursing in the game, okay, guys? It was just too much cursing. I mean, I curse like a sailor, but that was a lot. Do I wish certain things were in the remake? Yes, of course. But as a whole, I would wholeheartedly and just absolutely recommend this game fully. I mean, I enjoyed it entirely. It was just a trip down memory lane, and I would highly recommend for anybody, Resident Evil fan or not, to really get this game and take a look at it. I would rate it a 9.5 coffees out of 10. But that's it for me, you guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below, because I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and double uploads on Friday. Stay casually nerdy, you guys, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.